Panini was devastated when she heard about Chowder's death. She decided to move far away from the place where they had shared so many memories together, so she packed her bags and headed to California. However, when she arrived, she found herself in the middle of Mandy's empire. Panini was initially scared and didn't know what to do, but she soon realized that she had to be strong and adapt to her new surroundings. She started working for Mandy and quickly rose through the ranks, becoming one of Mandy's most trusted advisors. Despite the challenges she faced, Panini never forgot about Chowder and continued to hold on to the memories they shared. After Panini arrived in Mandy's empire, she realized that it was not the life she had imagined. She tried to escape hard labor, but unfortunately, she was caught by Mandy's guards. Mandy was furious with Panini for trying to escape and decided to make an example out of her. She was put on trial and found guilty of her crimes. As a punishment, Mandy sentenced her to death row. Panini was devastated but remained hopeful that she could somehow escape her fate. She spent her days in prison reflecting on her past and the choices she had made. Despite her situation, Panini never gave up hope and continued to fight for her freedom. Days turned into months, and months turned into years. Panini spent a long time on death row, but eventually, something extraordinary happened. A group of activists, working against Mandy's empire, managed to secure Panini's freedom. She was finally released from prison and was able to start a new life, free from the tyranny of Mandy's empire. After Panini's escape, Mandy was determined to find her and bring her back to prison to finish her sentence. She searched high and low, using all the resources at her disposal, to locate Panini. Finally, after many weeks of searching, she received a tip that Panini was hiding out in a small town in Nevada. Mandy immediately set out to Nevada with a team of her best guards. However, she faced a setback when she discovered that her robot, which she was heavily reliant on, was out of gas. This meant that she would have to continue her search on foot, which would take much longer and be more difficult. Despite the setback, Mandy was determined to find Panini and bring her to justice. She and her team combed through the town, searching every street and alleyway. They spoke to locals and asked for information, but no one seemed to know where Panini was hiding. Days turned into weeks, and Mandy's frustration grew. She began to worry that Panini had escaped once again or that someone had helped her to evade capture. However, Mandy refused to give up. She continued to search tirelessly, determined to complete her mission and bring Panini back to prison to finish her sentence. Mandy had been looking for Panini, but just when it seemed there was no hope, Schnitzel came to the rescue. Mandy tried to shoot Panini, but at the last second, Schnitzel jumped in the way and sacrificed himself so that Panini would be safe. His brave and selfless act was a reminder of the bond shared between the two of them, and of the power of friendship. Mandy knew that her mistake could have serious repercussions. She had thought she was shooting Schnitzel but had instead taken the life of her friend, Panini. She was horrified, and time had seemingly stopped while she absorbed the enormity of what had just happened. In a state of shock, she tended to Panini, dressing her in a straitjacket and carrying her to the maximum security prison where her body would be found. It was a dark and difficult journey, but Mandy knew that she had to do what was right. She was filled with guilt and sadness, but also an immense sense of responsibility. She knew that she had made a terrible mistake, and that it was up to her to correct it. Only she could make sure that Panini's death was not in vain. Mandy was determined to ensure that justice was served for her friend, and she dedicated herself to finding the truth and setting things right. Though it was a tough journey, she was determined to do whatever it took to make sure that Panini's death wasn't just a senseless tragedy. The atmosphere in Cian City was somber as everyone gathered to mourn the loss of Chowder at his funeral. Flapjack was also in attendance, despite his recent troubles with the law. The police took the opportunity to speak with him, urging him to reflect on his actions and the consequences they had brought about. As the funeral proceeded, the melancholic tune of the Chowder theme song filled the air, heightening the solemnity of the moment. However, Flapjack's reaction was unexpected. In a moment of apparent disregard for the gravity of the situation, Flapjack began dancing to the sad and depressing tune. This display of insensitivity did not go unnoticed by the police, who promptly doubled his sentence to 40 years. Flapjack's failure to consider the consequences of his actions, even in the midst of a solemn occasion, demonstrated a lack of remorse and responsibility that could not be ignored. The incident served as a powerful reminder that actions have consequences, and that individuals must be mindful of their behavior at all times. While it is natural to feel a range of emotions in response to various situations, it is important to remember the impact that our actions can have on others and to act accordingly. The funeral continued in a somber fashion, with Flapjack remaining in jail for another 20 years. The news of the deaths of the kids next door, Billy and Derwin, had been sent out, causing widespread grief and sadness throughout Sin City. The theme songs of both Kids Next Door and The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy played, but in a sad and depressing version, adding to the already heavy atmosphere. As the funeral came to an end and everyone left, Grim was left feeling lost and alone. He knew that he needed to find Mandy, his closest friend and confidant, to help him cope with the loss of Billy and the others. As Grim searched for Mandy in Sin City, he soon realized that she was nowhere to be found. His heart sank as he came to the realization that she had left the city and gone to California, perhaps to seek solace on a fresh start. Feeling lost and alone without his closest friend to turn to, Grim wandered the streets of Sin City, his mind consumed with memories of the good times he had shared with Mandy, Billy, and the others. He couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness that had taken hold of him since their passing. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. But Grim remained in Sin City, unable to bring himself to leave the place that held so many memories of his friends. He visited their old haunts, hoping to feel their presence and find some comfort in the familiar surroundings. Eventually, Grim began to come to terms with his loss and started to focus on the future. He knew that he couldn't bring back his friends, but he could honor their memory by living his life to the fullest and making the most of every moment. With a heavy heart, Grim said goodbye to Sin City and set out on a new journey, determined to make the most of his time and to remember the cherished memories of his friends always.